It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Karting with a K, fast-paced, white-knuckle racing where the only speed restriction is how fast you're able to get through the corner. Now with eco-friendly Honda engines, racing just across the river in 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Make sure you find them online, joeskarting.com. Again, karting with a K.
And they've also got their new contest started up where they have a handicap system for us chubby fellas, to where they give us a little bit of a discount on our time, and they've got a contest going. So if you win this contest, and it runs for quite a while, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it like through August or something?
Through July 31st.
And the winner of this contest gets to, I don't know if it's a ride-along or a drive-along or exactly how they're setting it up, with either a sprint car, a modified, or a late model with the Kenny Wallace driving experience.
It is a full-on driving. You're not riding along. You are driving this car. You could choose your choice of dirt late model, dirt modified, or sprint car. So it's a cool thing that Joe's Karting's got going on. They teamed it up, like you said, with the Kenny Wallace driving experience, which will be at Eagle Raceway on August 28th, Knoxville on September 10th and 11th.
Yep, I mean, it sounds like it'd be a real good time, and the handicap system gives us chubby guys a chance.
And it looks like also at a couple dates I missed, August 20th and 21st, they're at I-80 Speedway, and August 27th, U.S. Speedway. So a lot of good opportunities that Joe's Karting's giving you. All right, speaking of opportunity, Bristol Motor Speedway. It was an opportunity for Kyle Busch to continue his dominance, but unfortunately, was it a melted bead that got him the first time, and then they believe it was a camber issue for the rest of the JGR guys? Well,
yeah, I mean, they weren't real positive on the first one, but they're assuming the bead and then the camber issue, because, I mean, 3 out of the 4 cars, had issues with the right front, and the other one won the race.
Yeah, that was kind of weird, because, we've talked about this with team, the way teams work in NASCAR is that when one guy finds something, they all kind of begin to adapt it in their own little way, but then they can go off on their own direction. So maybe Carl had the perfect amount of camber put in where the other 3 cars had too much.
Well, and his driving style, is obviously a little bit different, because his setup was definitely different than the other guys, or he would have had the same problem. So,
and just to understand your camber, and by the way, I'll kind of get to this a little bit. The camber is just that where it kind of tilts the tire, and a lot of times they're going to tilt the tire to where when you're in the corner, it's going to be flat on the racing surface.
That's correct. The outside tire, so your right side tire, will, when you're going down the straightaway, will lean in at the top.
Right, and
the outside of the front tire is not on the track going down the front straightaway. All the pressure's on the inside edge. Okay, which tends to create a lot more heat there and a lot more wear there. Okay, then when they go into the corner and the body weight rolls in the car, then the tire flattens out, so they've got the whole width of the tire in the corner to turn the car, which is where it's mostly needed.
Right.
So if you use a little too much, and they have a spec that they come out with that they want you to use no more than, doesn't mean you have to, but that's what they want you to use.
It's kind of like lug nuts. They suggest you use 5, but last year they quit regulating how many you used.
Well, and most of the guys were actually using 5 on the right side wheels, at least at Bristol, just because, again, of the force that part of the car was taken. But years gone by, I mean, back in the 90s, Rusty Wallace used to get real aggressive with this, and there for a while they kind of referred to it as the Rusty Wallace rule, because they put out a spec and they would actually check it during tech. You couldn't have any more camber than that. And on the left front wheel, the camber is just the opposite. The outside of the tire leans out, so then when the tire leans, it flattens all up and they get the whole tire on the ground. They don't need the tires. If they could have a way to make the tire an inch wide going down the straightaway, that's how big it would be, because they don't need any more than that. That's why a dragster going 300 miles an hour has a tire 2 inches wide instead of a foot wide.
Right, up in the front, but on the back of it, it's got them giant tires.
Yeah, and that's just for traction.
And same thing with the sprint car.
Well, a sprint car, or even if you look at your Indy cars or Formula One cars, the front tires are always smaller.
Yeah.
They're not as important for putting the power to the track, but they are important for turning.
Yeah. And I wanted to take time to explain that, because as I'm watching the race at Bristol, there was a lot of technical things that seemed to to happen at Bristol. Was it Kyle Larson that had his track bar break?
Yeah, and that's just an odd deal. I mean, it'll happen from time to time. You see it places, but...
So even being a fan for as long as I have, and hanging around with you for the last, year and a half we've been friends, I've picked up a little bit of the terms and understanding of how some of this technical stuff works. But man, they kept going to that cutaway car, and Larry McReynolds, God bless him, I love him. I've talked about how much I love him, but I got cross-eyed when he was talking about the track bar, and because they use insider lingo, and so it's tough for a new person to understand what that stuff means when we don't understand the lingo. And so I wanted to take the time for the camber issue and kind of talk about that a little bit and explain it. That, I think you explained it right. The right side of the car, the top of the tire is shoved in, and on the left side of the car, the tire is shoved out. And so it creates it so that when that car's up in the banking, and boy, there's a lot of banking in Bristol. I loved some of those in-car shots.
And it's really weird because the banking there is not as much as Daytona or Talladega.
Yeah, and I wish they would do that more. Remember a couple of years ago they came out with that, they called it like the geocam, and where it would center itself on a zero axis, and then when the car went through the corner, it would keep it at a zero angle. But I think they got rid of it because people thought that they were manually moving that camera because it was such an extreme. But they came out and said, no, we were not touching that camera. It was sitting at zero. It was trying to balance itself at zero.
Yeah, well, then there was some type of delay or something because the car would go into the corner and they'd be well into the corner before it would ever move. So I don't know if they had a delay in the system. I thought somebody was manually running it too.
Yeah, a lot of people did, and so maybe that's the reason why they got rid of it.
But the reason the turns look so much more banked at like Bristol, or I mean, it's the same situation at Dover. A real quick mile track, but Dover's just a Bristol on steroids is all it is. It's a great big Bristol, but the radius of the turn is so much shorter.
Yeah,
I mean, from where you enter the turn to where you exit the turn is so much shorter. It's more of a U-turn at like Bristol. That's why the banking looks so much more severe.
Had a lot of wheel issues at Bristol. A lot of guys, you kind of talked about a little bit ago, they were probably going with 5 on the right side, but they were going with 3, maybe 4 on the left side because there's not as much pressure. And we were seeing a lot of guys that were getting bit with that because they'd be 10, 15 laps into a run and they'd have a vibration.
Yeah, and Martin Truex, I mean, that cost him a real good finish because he was running up in the top 5 when he got his vibration. Brad Keselowski got the vibration one time.
And not at Bristol. We've seen this all year long, and Fox kind of touched on a little bit that they went back and looked at it and saw that the loose wheel issues were starting to pop up more and more. Later on in the week, NASCAR actually said, we're going to take a look at that lug nut rule again, and maybe we need to make a modification to it. My vote is leave it alone. Let these guys, give the guys the rope to either hang themselves or succeed with. And we're seeing some of these guys that are, I think we've reached that extreme, that tension of the rubber band, and now it's going to start to get pulled in because they want to go with 3 lug nuts because it's saving them a 1/10, maybe 2/10, but they're going to have to start going with 4.
Well, I don't want to see any of the drivers get hurt. I was in a situation when I was on pit road back in the Truck Series one time, and Dennis Setzer, who was a perennial front runner in that series, great guy, great driver, good team he was with Morgan Dollar Motorsports, and I had him on pit road one day, and they missed a right front lug nut, and it was at Texas.
That's a high. That's
high speed into
really
turn 1.
Turn.
A high speed into turn 3, and the following week we hadn't been in the garage 10 minutes, and Dennis hunted me down and came and thanked me for making his crew put that lug nut back on the right front.
And the rule, so the rule used to be that if you, as the official on pit road, saw that they missed a lug nut, you raised your hand. If the car took off, then they had to come back around and put that lug nut back on. So they basically went a lap, maybe a couple of laps down, depending on the track. This is a much more severe penalty because they now have to come down pit road under green, and they may not be able to get that tire back on there right because the tire may have worn the threads off the stud.
It might have ruined a stud. It's just depending on how quick they feel the thing. It might ruin the wheel, might ruin the stud. If it doesn't, they can just slap a nut on, but I always see them at least change that pair of tires, you know. And again, it depends on the track. At Bristol, it was a 2-lap penalty. And that's where NASCAR thinks something like this is going to police itself. I just hope somebody doesn't get hurt before they realize, hey, we got to fix this, but I don't know how they can do every car like they're doing. I think they're doing a phenomenal job with these cameras on everything they're catching. And the biggest part is I used to sit at home and I would watch all the races I could, and I even went back and watched the truck races when they replayed a couple days later, just so, if I got to see, there was times I got to watch my own pit stops, and there was times I saw mistakes that I made. But I used to watch some of these other guys make mistakes all the time, and it was terrible.
Well, and it's such a good thing they pulled you guys off pit road. You've been retired for a few years from the circuit, but they pulled those guys off pit road. you really opened my eyes at Iowa last year about the dangers you guys were in, because not only were you open to being run over, but getting hit with lug nuts, getting hit with loose tires, getting run over by the car coming in. I mean, you guys you took your life into your own hands out there.
Getting hit by the cars was the biggest deal, but that's why the speed limits came into effect. I mean, pit road used to be 160 miles an hour.
I can't believe that.
But they've slowed pit road down. I never really got scared out there, except there was one time somebody at Charlotte was sliding through the grass. They lost it coming out of turn 4, and were coming through the grass, and they're not slowing down at all.
Yep.
But they got it straightened out, and when they hit pit road, they were able to turn. But that was one of the very few times I climbed back over the wall because I was worried, and I had Carl Edwards get his front valance over my toes one time. That was the closest I ever come to getting hit. But I was hit twice with lug nuts. It was just like being shot with a bullet. First time it put me on my knees. The second time I got hit in the ankle, I thought it was like a hockey puck because I used to play hockey when I was a kid. And I mean, they both hurt, and they hurt for several days. I always wore safety glasses because I didn't want to get anything hit me in the eye.
Yep.
I had a truck in the pit stall in front of me one time catch fire, so I got a whole mouthful of Purple K. That stuff tastes delicious. Let me tell you, everybody ought to try that.
Does it taste like grapes?
Yeah, that's just what it tastes like. Grape flavored.
Back to the results at Bristol. Boy, how about Dale Earnhardt Jr.? There was some sort of weird incident that happened with his car right off the start. He didn't get going, and he dropped like a rock. They ended up diagnosing it. They think that when he was on the warm-up laps that he had his fans going to keep his tires cool, and that drained the battery, so that when he dropped it to go, there wasn't any power left in the battery, and so the car died. Or at least enough power to run the ECU.
Yeah.
So the car died.
Well, that's just plain and simple. The alternators are designed on those cars that they don't really put anything out at idle, because if they're putting out juice at idle, they'll burn up at 9,000 RPM.
Right.
So they're set up to turn the RPM to create any charging power.
Which might have been the issue that Kyle Busch had, because when he melted a bead that first time, he may not have had his fans on, and he may have forgotten to turn his fans on, because, man, I got to tell you, those drivers are busy every millisecond at Bristol, and for 500 laps.
Well, the funny part about it is Dale, just back at Texas the week before, had gone out, and it was in the middle of a run, and he couldn't figure out why his car was changing so much. Well, his heater had a bunch of heat in the beads and in the brakes because he didn't have his fans on.
Yeah.
And they got him to turn his fans on, and things cools down, and his car became a rocket there for a while.
It's kind of funny, just those little things can really confuse a driver, because they have a lot to do in that car. I mean, back in the day, Richard Petty's days, it was, hit the go button and know when to turn her and turn her just right, But these guys have got the wedge adjustments they can do in the car. They've got the fans they can turn on and off, all these different things that are going on in the car that really you rely on the crew chief to give you that basic information to say, don't forget to cycle your fans, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do that. Okay, coming to green, so to go, you're in P whatever. It's this little information that the drivers can forget about because they're busy thinking about driving.
Well, that, and they've got to keep themselves hydrated. Mm-hmm. That's another big thing. They and if you watch, I thought it was kind of interesting the other day at Bristol when they showed Carl there before the last restart. He was taking a big pull out of a straw out of it, looked just like a water bottle, and then he pitched it out the window. Yeah, boy, that used to be a no-no.
And remember, it became a no-no for a little while when, was it Brad Keselowski that did it? When Kevin Harvick was leading, I can't remember if it was a Cup race or an Xfinity race, but there was specific video of Brad throwing that water bottle out the window under green, not coming out of the pits, not anything like that. He chucked that thing out, and it caused a caution, and it lost the race for Kevin Harvick. He was on lower tires or whatever, whatever. And so it caused a big issue for a couple of races there about these guys throwing water bottles out the window.
Well, I think it was Homestead last year. They thought that they were throwing a caution for a water bottle that was down, but it was actually a piece of aluminum that was in the middle of the track. And the first thing they showed was that water bottle, and everybody flipped out. Yeah. Same deal.
I remember that at the Homestead party. But we all started flipping out. We got to get through Bristol, but kids, there's a couple of news stories we really got to get to with Bristol, and we're running out of time in this turn. So let's talk about the results from Bristol. Carl Edwards gets the win. What a dominating car. Led 276 laps for 8 different times. Dale Earnhardt Jr. recovers from it. Was it 3 laps down at one point?
No, I don't think he went to 3, but he was definitely 2 laps down right off. I mean, in the first 3 laps, he was 2 down.
Yeah. Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, good finish for Chase. I think that's his highest finish as in the Cup Series so far. 2 high finishers, kind of record setters almost for these guys. There's 3 guys in a row here. Chase Elliott 4th, Trevor Bayne 5th, which is his highest finish since the Daytona 500 win.
Well, since he's won.
Right. And Matt DiBenedetto, who finished 6th. So great finishes for those guys, career high finishes. it was great seeing Matt Benedetto.
Great interview.
Yeah, after that shows you how much heart they put into these. You think maybe those back runners are just, maybe they're frustrated every once in a while, but, they kind of understand they don't have the stuff behind them. But, man, when he's emotional like that after a win or after a 6th-place finish in a small team like that, and they ended up picking up a sponsor because of the finish at Bristol for today's race at Richmond. Just lost my spot here. Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer, Ryan Newman, Joey Logano, and Ryan Newman finished out, the top 11. I got a little out of hand there.
Big finish for Boyer's team, and then there was, like I say, a couple other guys that really struggled along with Kyle Busch. You had Kyle Larson.
Kyle had a good car, but just couldn't keep the tires inflated and non-blown up.
And that was after that Xfinity race Saturday. Watching him and Kyle Busch cut through traffic for 90 laps. I mean, they were going 3 wide in the turn. That was some of the best racing I've seen on TV in a long time.
And we're going to get to that, too, because that's a big news story still to come. Maybe we'll get to it in turn 4. We'll probably have to wait to it in turn, we'll have to probably wait for it until in turn 4. Kyle Busch finishes 38th, Matt Kenseth 36th, Kyle Larson 35th. Danica Patrick, after she was doing fairly well most of the day, ends up finishing 27th, Austin Dillon 26th, Jimmy Johnson 23rd, and Denny Hamlin 20th. Let's see, looks like Landon Castle was the last car on the lead lap. He had a good car for a while there, but then it faded late.
Well, he got into that little tangle up there late, but yeah, he ended up leading about 20 laps or something like that, which for him, I think, is the first time he's ever led, so that's 20 laps, got to be a career high, obviously, and got plenty of exposure for his sponsor. When you're leading, you get that, especially when you only lead once a year.
Yeah. I really wanted to talk more about the poor attendance at Bristol because, oh man,
terrible.
That was rough. And some of the other issues, some of the other stories that came out of Bristol, but we've run out of time in turn 4, so we're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We sat down with Stu Snyder at the Bug Eater Bash a few weeks ago and talked to him. And then turn number 3, we're going to have Chris Spieker, late model driver from Adams County Speedway and a couple other tracks, right?
Yeah, he's actually, he lives in Messina, Iowa, and he's driven all over the Midwest for quite a while and won numerous track championships there at Adams County, and see what he's got going on for this year.
We'll wrap it up in turn 4 with some of those news notes we just talked about. We'll preview Richmond and so much more. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Hey, it's me, Kansas Speedway, and I'm sorry. Sorry for the barehanded slap of adrenaline and the burnt rubber aftertaste. Sorry other tailgates will seem lame. Yeah, real sorry about that.
It's the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series GoBowling.com 400. Saturday night, May 7th, Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah. Sorry, Moms.
Tickets at KansasSpeedway.com.
You're welcome.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 2, and we're going to continue talking with local drivers throughout the area. A couple of weeks ago at the Bug Eater Bash at I-80 Speedway, we sat down with Superman Stu Snyder. He's the driver of the number 81 Select Auto Race Saver 305 at Eagle Raceway and the Sprint Series of Nebraska. He also drives a 23S in the Nebraska 360 Sprint cars. We started off the interview by asking about his plans for 2016.
Running the Nebraska 360 Tour in the 81, and then going to hop around and run up north, Huset's, Jackson. Maybe a couple shows down here, too. Split up the run time between the 81 and the 23S with my car. And
any thoughts about running the NSL 360s?
We went down and ran Wichita, and we loved the format. It's just trying to look and see where the closest race is, where it's not going to conflict with what we're trying to do with the Nebraska Tour for this season. We're going to try and win it, track down the championship again. And if there's nothing going on, we'll either take this one or we'll load mine up and take mine.
What about the format did you like so well about the NSL 360s?
Well, it brought back into the where you didn't have a super fast dude that just completely dominated the whole night, and you kind of get a second chance. If you're not that great in the first heat, then you've got a qualifier that they line you up off of points from your first heat race, and it gives you a second chance. If you kind of screw up a little bit on setup or you make a mental mistake as a driver, you can start over a little bit, and then, at least you can try and get yourself into the main event off of those 2 heat races and not have to run the B feature.
What else is it? The contingency awards for the NSL, I think they seem to be above and beyond what a lot of other touring series are doing. They have a ton of contingency awards.
Yeah, the contingency sponsorship looks really, really good. And then they were going to try and do the gasket deal, and we heard that there was only a couple guys down in Wichita that had gaskets in on the intake, and didn't really make a difference for those guys that had them in. But yeah, like you said, the contingency deals are, they're by far one of the best. They're right up there with Knoxville Raceway on their contingency list that they give out at the banquet and whatnot. So we'll try and hit as many as we can when it doesn't conflict with nothing, and we don't have nothing else to do. I don't own a boat or a camper, so we might as well just keep racing somewhere.
Boats are just a waste of money.
Yeah, they say the best day that you have a boat is the day you bought it and the day you sold it. So.
I mean, there's those little times when you actually get out on the lake and maybe you got a couple of girls. Obviously.
Yeah, and it's not windy.
Right. Oh, wind. I'm so sick of wind.
It's horrible.
We're out here talking to them on day 2 of the Bug Eater Bash on Saturday night at I-80 Speedway, and the wind's been 30, 40 mile an hour all 3 days I've been out here.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it.
It was on practice Thursday night. We're going down the backstretch, and it's planting the car, just burying the left side, and the car's dancing around because the air catches the wind, or the wing, and the wind is kind of a big factor with the sprint cars. I've went to a couple races down in Kansas where we had a crosswind, and you'd go into 1 and 2, and it would actually blow us off the racetrack. And then in 3 and 4, it would blow you to the infield. I mean, it was crazy. That it really does affect us, probably a lot more than any other class, that runs dirt or whatnot.
Well, it's probably also a big deal when you're just on a long straightaway like they got here. I'm sure if you had a wind out of the south tonight, it'd be really trying to take the back of the car and flip you over going into 3, and you're going to be planted coming down the front straight.
Yeah, I felt the same thing, too, on Thursday night when we were out here running. It planted the car down the back chute really well and probably more than what it needed to, and made your entry into turn 3 a little tricky. Now tonight, it's going to make the entry into turn 1 tricky because, it pushed me down the front stretch on Thursday, and now it's going to do the opposite. So, you kind of got to factor that in a little bit with what you're doing with your compressions and your rebounds on your shocks. And
we're talking to Stu Snyder, driver of the 23S and the 81 Select Auto 360 sprint car throughout the area. You talked about racing the Nebraska 360s this year. I've been kind of following that series for a couple of years, kind of watching a couple of guys. I'm always over in Jack Dover's hauler, Cody Ledger's. I'm always picking on you and kind of watching you guys, what you're doing. And honestly, no matter where I'm walking around the pits, I seem to find you in everybody else's haulers.
Yeah, I bounce around. We're all racers when we put our helmets on, but I've always liked to be able to hop down there, and I've helped Cody, I've helped Jack a bunch of times with Dover, but it's fun to be able to go race talk with the drivers before. I mean, we don't tell each other what we're doing on our cars. We like to keep that under our hats, but no, I always like to walk around and talk with people and see what's going on, see what they've been doing, and especially the first part of the season.
So it's not after the races when you're looking for beer. This is during the races.
No, he's
a
looking
lot
for
of us
beer
don't
before.
even have any in the a lot of us don't have a lot of that till we get done, of course. But I've just, and if they ever need anything, and I've got it. And if it's not even here, if it's back at the race shop or whatnot, some of these guys. I talked to Chris Martin, and he come down for tonight's show, and he, I told him, I said, you want to work out of the shop? Or Ryan Bickett, the same thing. You want to work out of the shop if you got to, or if there's something you need to do in a hurry or something I got, I'll just go grab it and bring it back for you, and make sure we all have fun. And we're not making a ton of money doing this. We're just out here living a dream and having some fun doing it.
Well, it does you no good if you don't have anybody to race against.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it makes you a likable person when you walk around and you talk to people instead of just being a snail and hiding out in your trailer, and they get the wrong perception of you at that point.
Yeah, I think I first noticed it, and my memory is always rough, which everybody on the show knows that, but I'm pretty sure it was at the Race Saver Nationals at Eagle. Maybe it wasn't an Eagle. I can't remember where it was at, but I remember Jack. I was standing at Jack's. I was going to do an interview with him after the races, so I was kind of watching his operation, and he had an issue on the track, and he came in, and I saw you come running down, and you started helping him take stuff off the car and get things changed. I think he might have cut a tire. I think it was here at the Fall Brawl, maybe.
Yeah, it was, because I ran the 410 that night, and we heard it, and I wasn't running the 360 yet. Yeah, I think he either blew a left rear or a right rear, and it ended up screwing up the top wing. So me and a couple of his crew guys, we changed the wing out. I mean, it's just one of them deals. Hopefully that if something like that happened to me, that they would jump up and help me get back on the racetrack too. And I don't know. I'm always partial to Jack because he's been a real good friend of mine for years. And he needs something or I need something, we're always the first people that we call. And
are you a mechanically savvy guy? Can you diagnose an issue?
Yeah.
I mean, just out on the track and something's going wrong.
Yeah. Or I've always been good. I mean, I've been doing this since I was a little kid, working for Jeff Lowry and whatnot. And you can see kind of by looking at the car roll around on the track, or you can, as a driver, why Jack rolled around for an extra lap or so to maybe tell us, hey, this is going down, and then he'll pull into the work area and hope that that we're already ready with whatever we need. So I mean, it's nice to have that background, I guess, and then it carries over into our own stuff too, or if we've got an issue or something, being a driver that can build the motors and do all that stuff, you kind of can know right where you need to go if you've got a problem with something.
Go back to the friends thing with the Nebraska 360s. It doesn't really feel like there's anybody that you guys have to maybe keep an eye on, that don't let him in your hauler, he's going to steal some information. Is there guys in the Nebraska 360s like that, or is that mostly in the higher touring series?
I think that's mostly in the higher touring series. We've kind of all got a sort of a good idea what everybody's kind of running. And, with me working with a couple of these guys, I kind of know the direction that they're going to go. And they don't come to my trailer because they know for a fact that they ain't going to run what I put on for stagger. So they don't even bother coming down because they can already guess where I'm going to be at, and it ain't nowhere near where they're going to be.
Are you a left field setup guy?
A little bit. I mean, I kind of run the same bars and the same shocks that everybody runs, but when it comes to stagger and tightening a car up on a slick track, or, I mean, even on a semi-heavy racetrack, I'm always, way under what everybody else is running for stagger. And I like the way the car works that way, and it's straight. It's a lot straighter for me, and I mean, we've been successful with it throughout the years, so I just continue to kind of go that route.
The chassis is also going to, or the setup, I should say, the whole setup's going to be a lot more consistent through the race with less stagger too.
Yeah, it doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, you pretty much have what you've got the first lap that you're going to have at the end of the race. I mean, and I've had it bite me a couple times, like when the track takes forever, the car gets too tight, and then you're, trying to go down the straightaways, trying to move the wing as far forward as you can get it to make the car freer. But, for overall, though, it's pretty much the same. For 25 laps, you already know what you've got. And, those first couple laps, especially here, are really crucial to pick up cars and get some passes done because, we can get strung out. And, then we just kind of fall in line until somebody finds a really good line. Well, if you're already snug and locked down to the track with those guys that are a little bit freer, you can drive right past them.
Well, I couldn't wrap up an interview with you without asking you a couple of questions about, that situation a year ago. I know you said there's, it's probably best to leave things in the past, but is everything getting cleared up with that? Are you guys back to talking again, being able to work on stuff?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I talked to Michelle, and I've talked to Roger a couple times, both of them a couple times, I guess, on the phone, and talked to Roger man-to-man, and I still have yet to have the privilege to, face-to-face apologize to Michelle, but I got that done with Roger, and things are, I mean, they are what they are. I made a huge mistake in life, and I mean, it's all paid for and whatnot and taken care of. It's kind of just patching that deal up. I want to be able to go back to that racetrack. I was voted 2011 as a fan favorite, the most popular driver or whatnot, whatever you want to say. But we bring a lot of fans to that place, and it's my home. It's 10 minutes from my house. We were
and you and
very
Roger,
successful there.
You and Roger have done a lot together.
Yeah,
it's not a typical driver track owner relationship.
Deal, yeah.
You guys have really worked to help better the sprint world.
Yeah, exactly, and helped him build race cars to turn around and sell them for the 305 guys and stuff like that. And he's got one of my best friends in one of his cars now, Nate Weiler, driving for him. And it was, we were all kind of a family per se, and mistake kind of put a damper on that. But we're hoping to get that all put back together, and at least where I can be able to come back out and race at my home track and have the fan base that we had, and bring on more fans and whatnot. So.
Yeah, well, that's just a life lesson, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah, most definitely. It was just a snowball effect. We with what had happened, none of it was ever intentional at all, like a lot of people thought. It was just things continued to get worse and worse as the hours progressed, and it's just one of them deals. You say you're sorry, and you learn from it, and you move down the road as best you can, and you try and patch things up and make things as right as you can as a person, and hope that it gets kind of left in the past, I guess.
Well, unfortunately, that situation gave your haters a voice.
Yeah,
to be able to
gave
jump
them
on
a little
you.
bit, yeah.
But honestly, the people in the sport that really matter, every one of them I talked to said there's more to the story than we know, because Stu wouldn't abuse
that's
anything
that's
like
not
that.
my character,
Yeah.
and a lot of the times I'm the first person people call that need help on cars or fuel systems or building or parts or whatnot. I'm not that kind of guy.
Well, the next time you're in jail and you need a bail bondsman, Stu Snyder will help you out, right?
That I can assure you 100% that is not ever going to happen again. I was there. I don't ever want to do that again. That was the most horrible situation I've ever been in my entire life.
It's really shocking, like eye-opening, like, oh my, this is real. Like,
yeah, you watch it and on TV at late night or on I can't remember the channel, but you watch that stuff and then you actually witness it, firsthand. It's definitely it makes you, I would hope. I mean, most of those guys that were in there were repeat offenders, but I mean, you got to learn from that, and it was very eye-opening for me.
Unfortunately, some don't.
And yeah, I wish that none of that would have ever happened, and I would have never had to witness jail. But we're back out. We're here to win some races. We're here to win a championship. We got a lot of great people on board with us this year, and a couple new sponsors come on board. So we're looking to win some races, win a championship, be consistent, and be a team that's there to help people when they need it.
So in other words, next time somebody hears, watch this, hold my beer, get the hell away.
Yep. I'm definitely going to walk away from that deal.
All right, let's get back to the other stuff. So you're going to run the Nebraska 360s this year. Are you thinking about maybe running your Race Saver at the Race Saver Nationals?
I'd like to. I'd actually like to run a lot more of the 305 stuff when we can, when the schedule permits it. Because I've got my car complete, race ready 360, and of course the 81's a 360 team. But I'd kind of like to hop back over there. I mean, it's 10 miles from home, like I said, and I'm trying to track down a motor right now because mine's not going to be done for a while. But I would definitely like to do some 305 stuff here and there. I mean, I'm pretty confident that we can run up front with those guys, and they got a great group of guys, that race with them. Adam Goulian, Mike Boston, Doug Lovegrove, last year's track champion. There's not a lot of guys that you really got to worry about, like, just like the Nebraska guys. And, I pretty much grew up around all of them. So I'd like to get out there and run as many shows as I can. If I'm not running here, I'd like to throw a 305 and pop that in the car and go out there and turn some laps.
Stu Snyder, driver of the 23S and 81. You can catch him on the Nebraska 360 series and hopefully out at Eagle several times this year. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
And we'll be back here on the Front Stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
feather the brake, and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Heading into turn number 3 here on the front stretch, presented by Kansas Speedway. Tickets for the Go Bowling 400 Saturday night, May 7th race are available now. Call 866-460-RACE or visit kansasspeedway.com. Dirk, we're just, two shows away from heading down there, and we're already starting to get some of the interviews lined up. We've got OKs from Carl Edwards, PR guy. We're going to keep our fingers crossed that interview will happen. Landon Castle and Kyle Larson's PR guys have gotten back. We're just trying to get that stuff arranged.
And I'm taking my autograph pad because one of my favorite sports people of all time is Grand Marshal in that race, in the guy by the name of George Brett.
Yeah, and we're working on availability with him, but he's kind of a big deal, so he may not have time for a little old show up in Omaha. But somebody who does have time for a little old show in Omaha is Chris Spieker, late model driver throughout the area. Chris, how you doing, sir?
Pretty good. How are you guys today?
We are loving it because we're talking racing, and it's kind of like we finally turned that corner now. The weather is starting to cooperate a little bit more. Racing season's starting to kick into full gear. Tracks are opening up for their full season, so it's a good time of the year.
Yeah, finally get a little warm weather to where it feels like it's race time.
Chris, do me a favor. Could you I've heard of you, but I've never really been able to get much information about your racing career. So what got you started in this whole thing?
I've been coming to the racetrack since I was 2 weeks old. My dad, back in the early 70s, was a crew chief on several cars as I was growing up, and when I turned just before I turned 21, I was able to purchase a Pro Street or Pro-Am car myself without the approval of my parents, and kind of snuck it in on the radar. And about 2 weeks from race season, 2 weeks from my 21st birthday, my dad said, "Here, we got a little excitement coming our way," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so I heard about a race car, and I said, "Well, yeah, I did," and thought that maybe we were gonna be in a little bit of trouble there. He said, "Well, we better go get it so we can get it ready." And that was back in 1991, and I raced a Pro Street for till about 1998, and then I've been late model full time since then, and modified off and on as well.
Well, good. Any other things you've driven or kind of tested out just a little bit? Maybe I don't know. Maybe did you ever dabble in a sprint car or a modified?
I raced modified on and off 1,000. I drove the house car for IROC race cars on and off from 2000 to about 2012, and I stepped away from it. Just simply just didn't have time anymore that's needed to do that. And we ran USMTS with it, ran weekly with it, ran some IMC shows as well in that 12-year period. And we won, I think, 3 USMTS shows with it and several weekly shows with it, and a couple other IMC specials, in that 12-year period with the modified. Sprint car, I've always wanted to drive one once, but just never had the chance and never wanted to own one. But I would like to have a shot to drive one once, but now I'm to the age now where I'm not sure I want to do that either.
Hey, Chris, how many track championships you got down there at ACS? I know you got a bunch of them.
We have 9 at Adams County Speedway, 2001, and then 2002 we didn't race there weekly, and then from 2003 through 2009 we were the track champion there every year, and then again in 2014 you're the track champion. So
do you get tired of it at all? I mean, just winning them, what's the point?
Yeah, well, that's you never get tired of winning, but the running the weekly stuff, we haven't done much of it. We took a couple years off from 2009 to 2012. We took a couple years off of running weekly, and then we came back and started again in 2013 or 12, and in 2014 we won the championship again. And then last year we just decided that we didn't want to do the weekly thing again. It's just after doing it so long, it just wears on a person. There's a lot of stress involved with trying to win a championship. Having to be there every week, and my brother and his wife, they actually own the car, and both my kids and his kids are getting to the age where they have ball and all kinds of different things going on. So it's kind of impossible to make it to the track every week without having to miss some of their activities. And we've done this for 20-some years, and it's time to just kind of step back a little bit and take time to watch kids grow up.
So what series are you going to try and, are you going to try and follow a series, or are you just going to basically hit and miss specials, go to a couple every month and then maybe take some time off and go to a couple more, or what are you guys going to do this year?
Yeah, we're just going to do the primary series that we'll be racing with will be the MLRA series, but we're not going to follow them by any means, for points or anything like that. We're just going to try to run the ones that are close, or the ones that we at tracks we enjoy going to, Wheatland, I-80, Adams County Speedway, a few other tracks in eastern Iowa that we haven't been to. I've never raced at Donaldson. And then Davenport's on the schedule, Dubuque's on the schedule. We'll probably go up to Deer Creek for that one as well. And then we got a couple Lucas shows that we're hoping to try to hit, the one at I-80. And then there's a couple World Outlaw shows here in Iowa, Webster City and Mason City that we're thinking about as well. Our schedule is extremely tentative. We can put it on there, and until the car is loaded and we're headed that way, we don't know if we're actually going to go to it. So,
where can people go to see that tentative schedule?
Well, I don't really have I got a website, but nobody really keeps it updated. So I just kind of I'll probably post something here on my personal Facebook page here sometime in the next week or two to kind of give an idea of people what we're looking to do, I guess.
Okay.
Are you going to go run? I know SLMR is going to run down at Corning here. I think it's the first weekend of June. Are you going to head down for that show?
The SLMR rules package doesn't really fit our engine combinations.
Okay.
With what, I don't know. It just doesn't fit for us. I don't know. I like the series, but I like the rules that are applied to our engine pack. We don't have a chance to win. We're not going to go, obviously. So
yeah.
That's just what that's why we kind of chose to do the MLRA thing, and maybe we don't have a chance to win there, but we're going to go have a good time. So,
if you were talking to your rookie self, maybe it was the first time you were hopping into a late model, what's something as somebody who's won track championships would tell your rookie self?
If I was to do it all over again, I probably would have done more traveling when I was younger. And less of the weekly stuff, I guess, to just try to do it. I don't know, get away from the weekly stress of everything, and just go out and have fun and go try some other track. When I was younger, I guess I wish I would have done that instead of waiting until later in my career.
Maybe when you were a little younger and you could have pulled some more all-nighters. I know at my age, all-nighters are so rough anymore. They're rough for 2 weeks afterwards.
Oh, yeah. That'd be that's a huge difference. As you say, it used to be when I was younger, I could, work all night and then get off at 11 o'clock at night and come back to the garage, and from 11 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the morning, I was working on the race car, getting it ready for the weekend, or we'd go racing in Denison on Friday nights, and then if something happened, we got tore up or whatever, I'd work on it all night, sleep for an hour, and then work on it the rest of the day to get it ready to go to Corning Saturday night. So, that's is definitely a huge difference these days, and having to have a real job to support my family is another big difference, and why I would have done things differently when I was younger if I had to go back now.
With all the racing you've done, I mean, you've been around for a while. You've raced, 3 different classes of cars, and I know, from working, the Busch All-Star Tour and WDRL races and stuff, you've raced pretty much at most of the tracks in Iowa. You said there's a couple you haven't hit. But what is the one thing, if you were the king of racing, the god of racing, and you could change the rules or make one rule, everybody got free tires or everybody got free gas for their haulers, whatever, old people got into the races free, what would it be?
That's a good question. I mean, there's at this day and age of racing, the cost is incredible, to try to get a car to the track. back when I started. I bought my car, my Pro Street car, turnkey for $3,500 when I started, and now $3,500 wouldn't even hardly get you a good motor, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So probably if you look at some of the things that the Lucas Series, Dirt Late Model Series did with their rule packages this year, eliminating some suspension pieces from Jonathan Davenport to Jonathan's car owner. The suspension pieces cost him, by the time you figure in the shock, probably less than $3,000 or $2,000 or whatever it was, and he won $600,000. Well, the series came in and they made that piece illegal. Well, why would you make a piece illegal that would cost everybody, $300 to $500 to $1,500 to make, but yet you'll let them run a $60,000 wide bore engine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that stuff. Some of that stuff just doesn't make sense to me. There's a ton of different areas that they could save the racer money, and that's just one rule I would look at. I'm not a crate fan. I don't think crate racing is the answer, but I think they could do something with the engines to help keep that part of racing maybe a little better budgeted than what it is now.
Well, a lot of the sanctioning bodies, IMCA's got their spec motor, with their spec heads. And like you said, crate motors, if a guy can get his hands on seals, a crate motor is no closer to a crate motor than your late model is to something coming off the showroom floor,
Yep. And you know as well as I do, Dirk, with every rule that is made, that rule is virtually useless unless somebody's teching it.
Absolutely.
Just like MLR or Lucas has a rule where all your rear suspensions are supposed to be torqued to 45 pounds. Well, who is going to go underneath their car and check the torque on their bolts at 45 pounds, let alone a tech guy going to spend that kind of time on each car in the pit area to check bolts, make sure they're torqued to 45 pounds.
Well,
that's just a ridiculous rule.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous rule, and I would certainly think, most of you guys are tightening your bolts, holding your end in the car.
You may be surprised.
I wouldn't see that. I wouldn't see a need to have that rule. That's my opinion on that one. And there were times when I was involved in the rulemaking process on the local level, and that Craig Kelly and I butted heads. Rick and I usually saw everything the same. Rick, we've known each other Rick and I have known each other forever and worked together for a long time. But we usually saw eye to eye pretty much on everything like that. But with this question that we asked, with what would you change, we asked that to just about everybody we interview. And you know what the best answer that we got was from? It was from Little Rico Brew. And his thing was he thought that all kids should get into the races free because he said if we don't start getting kids to the track, there ain't going to be no racing in 10, 15 years.
Yeah, he's very true. That's a very good statement or thing that needs to change. Most of your tracks will let your kids in for free. I think another thing that I-80 did a few years ago. And I don't know whether you were there when it happened. I want to say it was like 2012, when they had like a couple free nights.
Yeah.
And I believe the first free night they had traffic was backed up all the way out to the interstate. And it took people like, I don't know, hour and a half or 2 hours to get into I-80, and they were standing room only,
Yep.
And the entertainment value, entertainment dollar, I guess, is so widespread anymore that you got to just find any way you can to get the fan to the track. And I just thought that was one of the great promotions that I-80 did there a few years ago, was to get and I've talked to Adams County about doing the same thing, because that's really what we're lacking is getting rear ends in the seats on a weekly basis, and it's if you can get them there a few times for free, hopefully you can get them there the rest of the time. When you are charging an entrance fee, and even when you're getting them there for free, and you got all them people there, and you're in control of the concession stand, you're still going to make money on selling your food, your drinks, and
beer and hot dogs,
your alcohol. Yeah, So that's just one thing that I've seen in recent years. I don't know what has caused it, but I can go back to race tapes from 1994 and watch my Pro Street days, and there's at Adams County Speedway, there's not a seat in the house to be found. And now you look at it, and it's pretty much you can pick where you want to choose, where you want to sit at, and it's just kind of a sad deal for the racing situation right now.
Yeah, well, Dan wasn't around racing much back then, but the SunTech crowds that we used to get were just incredible.
Yep, and that was it's just kind of I can't explain why that is. Why people aren't coming to the races. I don't know whether I liken some of the if you have too many
choices.
Classes, I think if you have too many classes at a racetrack, I think can create a problem too. Where I liken it to a good movie. If you go to a movie that's 3 hours long and they charge you $15 to get in, but the movie's terrible, or you go to a movie that's an hour and a half long and they charged you $10 to get in, well, you're going to tell everybody in the world about this movie that was great for an hour and a half and $10 to get in compared to a show that was 3 hours long and it had no entertainment value. And I think that's, in my opinion, some of the problem that some of these tracks run into. They're trying to spread out. They're trying to get people to come into racing by opening it up to classes, but you're driving the fans away because it's just boring, and they don't want to see 6 classes with 10 cars in it. They'd rather see 3 classes with 18 cars in them, and a better entertainment value. Getting in, being done with the show in an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it takes to do it, instead of running 6 classes for 4 or 5 hours. Just my opinion.
Chris, we appreciate your time. Unfortunately, we've run out of it, so we may have to have you on the show again to keep talking about this stuff because it sounds like you got a lot of really good ideas.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and you guys keep doing a great job. Keep promoting the sport. It's a sport that I love, a sport that a lot of people love, and hopefully we can all bring it back to what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good weekend, bud.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Yep, bye.
So we ended up having to cut a lot of that interview just because we didn't have time for it. So if you head over to the Joe's Karting YouTube page at about 10 a.m. this morning, we're going to have the full interview unedited. The audio gets a little bit tough to hear because he was having some phone issues at the end there. But you can head over to it and hear the entire interview, hear the unedited show on the Joe's Karting YouTube page. We'll hopefully get that posted at about 10 a.m. this morning. We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 4. We'll wrap it all up. This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's me, Kansas Speedway. And I'm sorry. Sorry for the barehanded slap of adrenaline and the burnt rubber aftertaste. Sorry other tailgates will seem lame. Yeah, real sorry about that.
It's the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series GoBowling.com 400. Saturday night, May 7th, Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah. Sorry, Mom.
Tickets at KansasSpeedway.com.
You're welcome.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Rolling into turn number 4, and we want to say a big thank you to everybody who joined us today. Stu Snyder for sitting down with us and talking to us about his 2016 plans and his issue out of Eagle Raceway. It's frankly, it's good to see that they've gotten that resolved. I can't remember if we talked about it on the microphone or if it was afterwards that, he kind of said, boy, you kind of took it easy on us. And I said, well, listen, we're not here to make anybody look bad.
We're here to promote racing, get the story.
And come on, I grew up from the farm. The numbers of times my dad yelled at me for destroying equipment because I wanted to go out and have a little bit of fun. I've destroyed a tractor. My brother actually texted me last weekend and said, you've destroyed a grain bin. I destroyed everything else on the farm, so yeah, I think I did destroy a grain bin one time.
You destroyed your mom's brand new camera.
Yeah. Well, I didn't destroy it. I dropped it in the Potomac, but okay, technically, yes, it was destroyed. If you want to be an insurance adjustment agent, then yes, it was technically destroyed. I wrecked her Oldsmobile. I wrecked a couple of my dad's trucks. My brother's motorcycle. When he moved out, I got his little motorcycle, and when he kind of quote unquote handed it down to me, it had all 4 blinkers, foot pegs, and a headlight that worked. By the time I got done with it, it had 1 foot peg, no brake pedal on the right side. The headlight was falling off, and it had 1 blinker because I laid that thing over so many times. But hey, speaking of bikes, by the way, I got asked to be the host for Bike Night for a couple of months. So that's going to start. It was supposed to start Wednesday, and then it'll be every Wednesday night. So I'm going to be the host of Bike Night.
What's that mean?
I got to grow a thicker beard, and I got to get a motorcycle.
And a leather jacket.
And a leather jacket. I don't think they'll let me into the Hells Angels, but we'll see.
No.
All right, let's talk. We were talking a little bit about Bristol and some of the stuff. I want to get your thoughts on, let's talk about the racing action at Bristol. Do you think it's improving since they have modified the track after that big adjustment when they made the progressive banking?
Basically the only difference now is it used to be follow the leader on the bottom. Now it's follow the leader on the top.
Yeah,
they're just running a different groove. Otherwise, the racing's exactly the same.
Brendan Gaughan brought up an idea in the Xfinity race, in between the heat races and the feature event, that he said, I really wish Goodyear would bring a softer tire so they gave up a little bit more. Would that help with that bottom line, or would that just mean that towards the end of a run, everybody's car is going to get more loose?
Yeah, that I don't think would help with the bottom line. I really don't think it would. That's the whole idea. The whole idea of the progressive banking that the track's supposed to have is both lines are supposed to be equal.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Right. I mean, you could see it in both races, and you could see it, I don't know how many times you would see a car, like, let's talk about the first heat race in the Xfinity race with Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, and Eric Jones, where Jones was first, Larson, and then Busch. And Busch clearly had the fastest car, but he could not make the pass when he would try to dive down and get past Larson. Larson did not have he said after that race, he said the 18 is probably the best car, so we got some adjustments to make. And that shouldn't be the way it is.
And it was kind of interesting because after the feature, Kyle Busch said that the best car didn't win, and he said he didn't have the best car, which means he thought Kyle Larson had the best car at the end.
Yeah. And so it's really kind of, what do you do now? I mean, you feel really bad for Bristol because they just spent who knows how much money on that big screen TV. That thing was massive. And boy, that attendance, I think the best estimate, you said it, I thought maybe it was half full. You said no, they'd be lucky to be a third full. And that's what jski.com was kind of talking about with what they thought the attendance was like at Bristol for that weekend's race. It was about a third full.
Well, to me, what it looked like on Sunday was what it used to look like on Saturday.
Yeah.
It looked like...
that was, I mean, honestly...
And then they kept showing it. They kept showing the blimp picture, and I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so we've got a few minutes we can talk about this before we preview Richmond. I've got a theory of what I think it is.
Uh-oh.
I know.
Here goes a grain bin.
Yeah. Not the first guy to say that to me. So... I'd heard Larry Mack say during that race, and I forgot to go back and fact check myself, so help me out if I'm wrong, but I believe the last 2 spring Bristol races were rain delayed.
Yeah, that sounds right. They've had a couple rain delays there recently.
I think that is the major reason for the ticket sales at Bristol. Now, Atlanta came out earlier at the end of last year when they released their tickets, and they did a rain weather guarantee. And that basically said that if the race gets delayed to Monday, then we're going to help you out with your tickets. I think it was something to do with you got a ticket to the next year's race. They were going to give you a free ticket to the next year's race. But you had a guarantee for the, let's say the $100 you spent on your ticket. And you and I have talked about this, that, Kansas Speedway is one of the fine sponsors of this program, and they help us out with a lot of great stuff. Iowa Speedway helps us out. They do a lot of stuff with making sure their ticket prices are affordable. The most expensive thing about a race weekend are hotel rooms. And then any kind of food and beer you want to buy to experiment, to have fun with.
To me, for a small portion of the people going to a race, the most expensive part is travel. If you're flying in,
yeah, that could be,
or something like that.
You're right.
But I don't think there's a huge portion. I mean, I'll bet that's less than 10% of the people showing up at the race. And like you say, then it's the lodging.
Yeah.
And I would say then tickets and then the food, because most people can go to McDonald's or something. You don't have to spend a ton on food. Yeah. But I think Bristol's problem with this spring race as it used to be, it should be a night race. They should have that race at night. Bristol, everybody loves that night race in August. That track will be full for that race. They should come back and go back to a night race for this first race where everybody can party all day. And, it's Redneckville. Let all the rednecks drink their beer all day and stumble into the stands and root like hell.
Maybe that was actually the problem. They sold the tickets, but everybody was passed out in their campers outside, and they didn't make it in for the race.
No, I don't think that would have been the issue. They would have crawled. They would have had people put them in the wheelbarrow.
To complete my thought is the issue that I think that NASCAR really needs to figure out is that it costs people so much to get to the race, and then if the race is delayed and I got to be to work on Monday, I'm SOL. I don't get my money back on my tickets. I don't think there's any sporting event that offers you money back on a weather delayed or weather canceled event because
it's Mother Nature.
Yeah, they can't help it. And a lot of times, like Eagle Raceway did this a couple of years ago where they went to the Sunday races. So if you bought tickets to the Saturday night weekly racing night and it got rained out, then you come back on Sunday morning and you got in and you get in for free. They're not going to give you your money back because that revenue keeps the track open. I mean, let's just be honest. And boy, if Bristol has more races like that, we're going to be talking pretty quickly about how they need to we may be losing Bristol on the circuit.
Well, they're not going to lose anything this year. I mean, I don't know if you paid attention the other day. It's something I've known for 2 or 3 years now, but they're actually going to have a football game there this September. They are filling the half the racetrack with dirt, and I believe it's Virginia Tech and Tennessee are playing. I know Tennessee's playing.
It was kind of the real reason why they put that big screen in there was so that fans could have that interaction because there's no scoreboards in there. Right. So, I mean, there was the leader poll, but that wouldn't do you anything in a football game.
No, and it's going to have to come down.
It did come down. They took it down.
Well, I'm just going to say, it was going to have to be down for the football game.
Yeah.
So,
and that's been in the works for a few years, and that's really exciting. I think tickets actually went. I think they sold out.
They've sold out. Yeah, they sold 160 or 80,000. I don't remember how many places that holds, but they set a world record for the most people to go to an American football game. There's probably been more to soccer games or something somewhere.
J-Ski has an estimate of 90,000 people in attendance at Bristol for last Sunday's race, and that's NASCAR has gone to a policy a few years ago, and tracks also of not releasing attendance. IMS Indianapolis Motor Speedway used to be the only ones that didn't release attendance. But then NASCAR kind of hit on harder times, and that entertainment dollar is harder to find, and so they've quit releasing that stuff because it's not the most flattering thing to say that our venue was only a third full.
Well, especially when you're trying to sell advertising.
Right. All right, so that's a couple of news and notes. Let's also talk about Richmond. How about we preview Richmond International Raceway?
Watch the 4 Gibbs cars, watch the 2 Penske cars, watch Jimmy and Dale, and everybody else will be in the back. I mean, no, it's all seriousness. Kyle is great there. Kurt's pretty good there. It's not Harvick's favorite track in a Cup car. He does real good in the Xfinity Series there. Matt Kenseth has run good there. Carl has run good there. Like I said, the Gibbs cars have run. Hamlin's won races there. The Gibbs cars, they're in front of the Hendricks cars right now, except, Jimmy's won races, but I think his key is Chad Canales making in-race adjustments.
Yeah. Kyle Busch is the current active driver leader with 4 wins at Richmond. Kevin Harvick has 3. Denny Hamlin, Clint Bowyer, Kurt Busch have 2. Brad Keselowski, Ryan Newman have 1. Matt Kenseth also has 2, and Carl Edwards has 1. Now, something that makes me really the interest that kind of sticks up in my mind as I was looking at this off the spec sheet that I sent out earlier in the week. Top 10 rated drivers at Richmond. Jimmy Johnson has a 90.1. He's 8th on the chart. He has 3 wins though in his 22 total races there, but he has a 90.1 driver rating, which tells me that he's won 3 times, but the times he hasn't won, it's been rough races for him.
Right. Yeah.
So he might be one you want to not pick today for the Pick'ems contest because it could go either way, and you don't want to go with a driver like that. You definitely don't want somebody that it can easily swing in the wrong direction.
Well, and I mean, that's kind of like Matt Kenseth, who had, real good solid year last year, and this year can't get out of his own way. He had a real fast car the other day, and, another thing bit him, something that hadn't happened happened yet. But still, something bit him.
What's he going to find today to bite him?
He's going to have that year. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I got nothing against the guy. And,
it happens. I mean, it's called the sophomore slump. It's called the whatever you want. Kyle Larson
he's well
went through it
past the
last
sophomore
year.
slump. He's well past that. But it's just going to be one of those years for him where he's not going to catch a break. And when he does catch a break, he's going to win that race.
Kurt Busch won the race this time last year after leading 291 of the 400 laps. He led 6 different times. Kevin Harvick came home second, Jimmy Johnson third, Jamie McMurray fourth, Joey Logano fifth, Casey Kane, Matt Kenseth, Jeff Gordon, Clint Boyer, and Martin Truex Jr. rounded out the top 10. Very good run for Jamie McMurray. Every once in a while, you see these guys that are able to stick their nose in there at the end of the race and get a good top finish. He definitely wasn't one of those guys. Led 2 different times for a total of 4 laps, but he had a very good car all day long.
Well, and this is also one of those tracks. You go to a lot of these tracks, and you'll see that the person that leads the most laps does not win.
Yeah.
Richmond's not that way. Richmond, normally, if you lead a lot of laps, you usually win.
Tony Stewart had a rough day. Obviously, he's not driving today as he is still on rehabilitation. He made contact with Dale Earnhardt Jr., and they were not happy with each other after the race. They didn't really cuss or holler at each other, but they kind of went through the media and just said, we didn't like what they did, and then I think I'm pretty sure they made up later because they're pretty good friends. Let's see. Other drivers that had rough days: Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin finished 22nd, Carl Edwards 19th, Brad Keselowski 17th, Dale Earnhardt Jr. because of that contact, Tony Stewart ended up finishing 14th. AJ Allmendinger had a pretty good day. I think he was up front most of it, but started to fade late, finished 13th, Kyle Larson 12th, Ryan Newman 11th. So that's where they finished in 2015 for this race.
And if anybody's looking for a quick buck, you might as well go ahead and sue Coca-Cola, because their newest commercial is total BS. I guarantee you it never happens, never will happen, never has happened, isn't ever going to happen, where one driver goes up to yell at the other one and he twists the cap off a Coke and they clink their bottles and say, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, believe me, that ain't happening.
But it was kind of funny that it was Denny Hamlin and Ryan Newman because they had issues a couple of years ago.
They had issues.
I remember it had to have been the 2014 season, but they just came out with the new Coke family ads, and it was Tony and Ryan and Danica and Denny and I think one other guy. Joey Logano. And it was Logano and Newman, wasn't it?
No, it was Logano and Stewart after California.
Yeah.
Where Logano threw his water bottle at Tony.
Anyway, so that's kind of our picks for today. If you're a part of the Pick'ems contest, season-long contest, we had some big mix-up in this because a lot of guys in the season-long and the Kansas Speedway contest took Kyle Busch. Edwards was the other favorite. Yeah, no, that's fine. You jumped up to 12th, I think, in the Kansas Speedway contest, and I think you're in the top 15 in the season long because now you have 2 wins and you have a lot of points.
I'm only 12th in the Kansas contest.
I think so. No,
I thought I'd be closer to the top than
I
that.
think you are 12th in the.
I might be 12 points behind
in the Pick'ems contest, but I don't think you're that far. You're that high in the Kansas Speedway contest. Let me pull it up real quick while I'm trying to stall. So
I got max points this week and 40 points last week. That's 88 in 2 weeks. That's pretty good.
I don't think I have you listed in the standings. Is why you have 114 points, so you would be third. In the. So yeah, okay, all right, fine. It's still a long season. You got time to ruin it.
Well, and I'm not eligible for the points, but my ego likes that.
Your ego needs stroking every once in a while. Coverage today for the Toyota Owners 400 is on Fox and MRN. Coverage kicks off at 11 a.m. with green flag waving just after noon. Make sure your picks are in on time. We got a big show lined up for you next weekend. Danny the Dude Lasowski will join us to preview the I-80 Dirt Classic, which is going to have a unique fan-voted format. I believe Mike Massaro of NBC Sports is going to join us. He's going to help us preview Talladega and kind of get a set for Kansas Speedway.
Ralph Woodard
will also be joining us, and Cody Ledger will join us to talk about his 2016 plans. So hopefully I don't have to put that off because we have a lot of interviews next weekend, but we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll push Mike back to turn 4, and we'll have Cody in turn. I don't know. We'll figure something out. It's good to have too much content, isn't it? It's so nice. I-80's season opener this weekend. Eagles season opener is this weekend. Adams County Speedway season opener was last weekend, and just it's all starting to come together, and we can all get out to the dirt track again. Saturday night was really fun at the Icebreaker. Last Saturday night, by the way.
How was the monster trucks? How'd Pablo do?
Oh, he Okay, so we don't really have time to talk about it. He didn't do as well as I'd hoped he did. It was a bit of a rough surface because the dirt was really tacky. So a lot of these guys that had wide wheelbases narrow wheelbases were rolling their trucks over. So it was kind of exciting for the fans. But honestly, that Council Bluffs show was a lot better. I don't know where they got their dirt from for this show, but they shouldn't go back there.
Well, and from what I saw on numerous videos on Facebook, is that the circuit or the track was just, it really looked small.
It was. I don't know which one was smaller, if it was the Mid-America Center Council Bluffs or if it was the Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, but they were both very small. They navigated the one in Council Bluffs really well. I just think there was something with the dirt. Maybe it was drier, and so they were able to slide the tires a lot better. They were able to move the truck around a lot easier, but it just seemed like any turn they made, the truck would want to get up on two wheels, and so they had a real tough time setting the truck up for ramps and getting through it. So, but otherwise, it was a good show. I had a lot of fun. It was really cool to see that Pinnacle Bank Arena, and unfortunately, I had to see a bunch of crazy Husker fans afterwards. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back next weekend to do it all again. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been The Front Stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for The Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.